It's a minor gripe, but Fritz, you're a miniature wargamer. Playing with unpainted miniatures? But what about board games? Now, there's this idea, certainly with board games, you are creating a very portable and direct experience, a very, very, very focused, literally in a box experience. Now, the lines between wargaming, board games, role-playing games, they've expanded tremendously. Just like over the past 10 years, there are some board gaming systems that rival wargaming systems. You know what I'm talking about. It's the last Kickstarter you backed. You said that was your last Kickstarter. We know that's not true. You went in on the core, then you got the expansion packs, then you got the character packs, then you got the upgrade pack, then you went in season 1, season 2, season 3, plus the Kickstarter exclusives. You've got this massive system of like 10 or 15 boxes. And it's only supposed to be a board game. Some of these board games literally have hundreds and hundreds of miniatures. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but board gaming, like wargaming, it's this interesting matrix of rules, narrative, background, visuals in terms of a wargaming table or a board game, the tiles itself, the artwork, the tokens, the interaction of the cards, this idea of not only a narrative, but putting you and setting you in that moment. And we all have various board games titles in our collections. You know the ones I'm talking about, where when you're playing with a group or you're playing with solo rules, for those moments and many moments, you're immersed, you're in there, right? That's the board game type experience. I feel though, and I have to wonder regarding miniatures, because most games are miniatures, right? We kind of went from tokens and counters over to miniatures. There's a few games that have standees. That's kind of a side note. Standees, I understand kind of that middle ground. I think when they're done correctly or very well done, they're almost better than miniatures because they allow you to have some artwork and some visuals that you can't capture on miniatures. But if they're just kind of generic, they literally fall so flat. And I think I'd rather just have tokens. 2 titles in my collection that have fantastic standees would be Of Dreams and Shadows, fantastic artwork, fantastic visuals. And I have to say, not just because it's one of my favorite board games, but I could quote other editions of it. Talisman 4th edition, not 4th edition revised, 4th edition Black Library. It has cutout standees that the colors are great, the artwork matches, the size is big enough that you can see it anywhere on the board, no matter where you're sitting at the table. It works, it's fantastic. But compared to miniatures with great detail, before we even get into painted, miniatures are superior. So exploring this idea of miniatures, what I've been griping about is what's up with some of the colors. What is up with the colors? Now, most miniatures are going to be kind of this generic plastic gray. You understand that, okay, right? All of the monsters, the encounters, they're going to be one color. But then the heroes, the adventurers, the actors, the characters, they're often set aside a different color. So this way, the visuals, you can know very, very quickly where the characters are versus the monsters and spawns and encounters. But I have to wonder some of the color choices, like bright red or bright yellow. They certainly stand out, but they wash out details on otherwise very, very fine miniatures. I mean, we're getting to the point, I won't even say we're getting to the point. We're there, right? Where miniatures are not even premium anymore. What I mean by that is they're so well done, they rival wargaming miniatures. A perfect example, Nemesis. I've just got the core. I actually showed a tremendous amount of restraint. I just have the core. The aliens in that, they pull double duty in my Tyranid army list because they look fantastic. I put those down on the table with my Tyranids, Warhammer 40k Tyranids, and players are like, yo, Fritz, is that the new Tyranid release? Where'd you get those? What build are those? Where do those warriors come from? What kind of Hive Tyrant is that? And I'm like, it's not GW miniatures. You look side by side, they're fantastic. So we're seeing more and more and more of this. And I see a lot of dungeon crawlers, or I see board games where the generic base level miniatures are fantastic with the poses, with the sculpts, what they're giving you. The characters are very well detailed, but then you mold them in this plastic where they glow in the dark and you can't even see them. What, Fritz, paint your miniatures? Well, yes, eventually. I mean, I'm actually still now working my way through Conan. It has been years. If you look at that, you're like, Fritz, why isn't your Conan stuff painted up? Well, it's not painted up very quickly, and I'm still working on it because I play the game so much. That's one of the things I find with board games is that I can paint them up compared to a 40K army or mass historical armies that I'm working on. It's not unbearable. It's not unreasonable. It's not like we're talking about Zombicide Black Plague again and again. I painted one set of Black Plague. We love playing it at the club, play it all the time. It's kind of one of the top 5 games that I've just gotten plays in because I really like it. I'm like, I'm going to paint up a set. I'm going to paint up a whole set because we've got furniture for it. We've got tokens. We're going to do it. And started on a weekend, and I figured like, okay, by next weekend I'll be okay. That was a brutal slog. And I went to tabletop quality, maybe a little bit above tabletop, because just with so many zombies, we're not going to individualize everything. And I know they're going to get dropped on the floor. Someone's going to step on them. We had a dog eat one. Cards get lost. I mean, the game is roughly played. So I painted that, but then I had another set come my way. And I'm like, well, my own personal private copy of Zombicide. Oh, do I really want to paint that up? Well, okay, let's paint that up. So I painted a second setup, and that was it. I was like, I'm good. I frame that because most board games are not that quite crazy, even with a lot of miniature expansions. So in terms of painting them up, that certainly would solve any issues. But again, going back to this idea of the board game as an experience in a box, I feel like why couldn't you just do them all one color? Do them all a kind of flat gray or maybe an off-white, some sort of color, and the artists will debate this, some sort of color where the miniatures, the mold, the sculpt pops and it looks great. The details look great, but we don't have to paint it. If anything, what I'd like to see is then if you have your characters, just have a ring on the base, right? Just pop on a ring or pop on something that lets you know, hey, these are the actual characters with the miniatures. Because the dungeon crawlers that I've played that have these kind of weird reds and yellows and one's a blue, bright blue, kills it, I'm looking and saying, I'm not going to get that lost on the board. There's not that much stuff on the board. I wonder some of the color choices. Minor gripe. Eventually it'll get painted, but in the meantime, I do find certain color combinations, they do kind of take away from the visuals. So as a board gaming enthusiast yourself, do you paint all your stuff? The stuff that's unpainted or you're thinking about painted? What colors work? Do you agree? We're putting pre-painted aside, like Zia, completely pre-painted. That's aside. Put that aside. What titles do you have in your collection where you're like, Fritz, I love the game, absolutely, but the colors are just popping, and I don't know what they were thinking. Was it like a mass bulk sale of this color plastic that they were able to do it? Why one color over another?